Well, welcome back, everybody, to our summer wellness series. We took a little bit of a break for July the 4th to celebrate our independence and our freedom. I hope you guys took advantage of that time and were able to have some family time and enjoy some rest and maybe catch up on the webinars. I know several of you have said, oh my gosh, I'm still so behind. And that's the beauty of the recordings because you can keep them and you can watch them as they're applicable to you or someone you care about. So I hope you had a great Independence Day. We're back today with one of my coworkers from Longevity. I cannot wait for y'all to hear from her. She and I have lots of conversations. I have the privilege of coordinating for her and our patients, and she and I talk a lot about hormones. And I'm like, that needs to be our conversation that we have on the Summer Wellness Series. So here we are talking today. And you guys get to hear her expertise, her caring spirit, the way that she cares for our patients, and just hear the wealth of knowledge that she has. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Maria, and then we'll get started. So she's a doctor of naturopathy, earned her bachelor's degree in psychology from Montclair State University. She's a certified reflexologist and studied aromatherapy at the Heal Center in Atlanta. In addition to working with developmentally disabled adults for 8 years, Maria worked for Dr. Stephen Edelson, founder of the Edelson Center for Environmental and Preventative Medicine in Atlanta, for 6 years. During that time, she served as a new patient coordinator, nutritional coordinator, and office manager. She helped patients with autoimmune disorders and other chronic illnesses, implementing their treatment plans with alternative therapies and nutritional education, which is what she does for her patients at Longevity. She has earned certifications as master herbalist, holistic health practitioner, and traditional naturopath, and is a homeoprophylaxis practitioner. And what that means is she helps people who are going to be traveling to foreign places to kind of prevent, rather than getting a bunch of vaccinations, to help prevent illnesses abroad. So she's been working at Longevity for years and continues to serve patients well through natural and holistic therapies and education. And I get to witness that every day. She's such a joy and such a great person. And Maria, thank you for joining us today. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you for having me and all your sweet words.
Awesome. I know we love getting to do what we do. It's such a privilege.
And it is
And
a privilege for me to have you as my coordinator as well. So we
thank you.
we work
I know
great as a team.
we sure do. And it's so much fun when we get to do what we love and meet great people doing it and build relationships. So, Maria, we're going to talk today about hormones, and it's such a complex issue. But first, I'd love for our listeners to hear about you and just how you got started. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in this field.
Okay, well, it's been a very long time. I fell into it quite honestly by mistake. I moved down here from New Jersey and working as much as I loved it with developmentally disabled, it can be a high burnout field. It's very intense. And I wound up working for Stephen Edelson and just fell in love with the way he worked. He's retired now, but really he was looking at root causes, which he was doing this kind of, I would say, before people really understood what functional medicine is. So he was way ahead of his time. I worked with him, side by side for years and years, and just realized that, traditional medicine was kind of giving everybody a Band-Aid. And you really needed to find out what was causing the problem. We want the symptom to go away, ideally, right? But if we just give you a Band-Aid, the cause is always going to be there, and that's not going to go away. So, working with him and learning what he did and his ways kind of bled over into, ending up at Longevity and then incorporating and learning more about the homeopathic side. So that's just kind of another branch to, working with people to optimize their health. So kind of fell into that, living, the more natural, healthier side from what I learned with Edelson, and it just kept growing and growing with being at Longevity. So just incorporating more and more pieces to the puzzle since I've been there.
And with lots of wisdom and experience, not only from your experience in those years, but you've done a lot of studying and have worked with lots of patients at Longevity yourself. And so Just learned so much from you. And so as we're starting to talk about, and I love that you mentioned root cause because and I'll say this again, I've said it on every segment, but finding a practitioner that you trust, that listens to you, that really wants to get to the heart of not just your physical manifestations of symptoms, but what's going on in your life. And let's kind of segue that into your whole health care, but just getting down to the root of why are we having these symptoms? And I think we've talked a lot about that on these webinars. It's a kind of a common thread throughout our conversation. So hormones are no different. We're going to kind of address that. We're going to be talking, I'm going to kind of talk backwards here because we're going to talk about a test called the Dutch test that is a comprehensive hormonal kind of assessment, if you will, that tells a lot about your hormones. And can you talk a little bit about what the test is, what it can test for, and just how it might differ from just getting labs from your conventional OB?
So the Dutch test is pretty comprehensive. It's a urine test, a dried urine test that takes place over 24 hours. So you're getting a wider range of hormone fluctuations. Our estrogens, progesterones, they go up and down all day long. So if you go and do a blood draw conventionally, you're going to get whether you get your draw at the spike in the peak of your hormones or in the deep dip. So when your doctor looks at those values, they may either tell you your estrogen is super high or your progesterone is super low, but it was at that moment. So when you do the Dutch, you get a broader base. It encompasses all those highs and those lows all day long, and you get that nice average over the day of what it looks like. So that gives you a little bit better view of what's potentially going on. So the Dutch looks at your estrogen levels, your progesterone levels. It looks at your androgens, your DHEA. So it gives you a picture of what you're doing across the board with your hormones. It also looks at your cortisol levels, which are going to be reflective of our adrenal glands. Our androgens and our estrogens as well reflect our adrenal health. We're going to look at melatonin levels. So if you're not sleeping good, we may have a really good picture of why you're not sleeping well. It's going to do an oats test. So that'll give us some markers on some nutritional status with our B12, our B6, our glutathione. So really good nutritional support there that we can get some ideas on. There are some markers for oxidative stress and neuroinflammation. So those all give us a picture for, how well we're doing, what our inflammation looks like, and what our predisposition, I guess you could say, is to go down the path of either some cardiovascular risks, some cognitive function risks, some risks that most people probably wouldn't associate with looking at their hormone levels.
Yeah, wow. And it does when, and I think when there's a misconception when we say hormones, we automatically think reproductive. We go to the
Right.
estrogens and the progesterones, but really the foundational hormones, thyroid and the adrenals, the cortisol, the pancreas, even with insulin and all of that, we've got to factor all of that in when we're considering, like you said, those health risks for chronic illness.
Mhm. And that's, in conjunction with the Dutch, there are lots of tests, full thyroid panels and things that will give us even a broader base picture. The Dutch can show us some patterns for some thyroid issues. So in conjunction with some of those other tests, you put all those pieces together, and then we can, tailor approaches for people that can help them with some symptoms that they may be having. But the Dutch can also give you some indicators that they may not be symptomatic in what we traditionally think of those hormonal symptoms or hormonal issues. Somebody can be completely asymptomatic, but if their hormones are low, they're at risk for cardiovascular issues and cognitive function issues, bone health issues. So there's lots of pieces to look at, even if somebody doesn't think that they have any of those symptoms going on at the moment, or if they think that their symptoms are tolerable. Just
Right.
because they think they're tolerable doesn't mean that they shouldn't look at them.
Yeah, we talked a lot about that in these weeks too. Like as women, I think so often we will say, "Oh, I'm fine. It's just how I am. I'm just running, burning the candle at both ends," and you accept those symptoms as normal.
Normal,
Even
right?
digestive symptoms, people say, "Oh, my GI is fine. I don't really have digestive symptoms." That doesn't mean your microbiome's in balance. There are other, it may present on the skin, it may present in cognitive deficiencies. So I always encourage, let's not dismiss symptoms as normal or I don't have any symptoms, I'm good. It's always good to have a baseline
It
and
is.
have
I
them
mean,
evaluated.
I couldn't tell you, well, I'm sure I've told you how many symptoms, how many patients will sit and they'll say, oh, well, that's normal. And
Right.
that maybe you're normal, but it is not quote unquote normal. It's not where I want you to be.
Right.
So there's definitely room for people to see improvement, even when they don't think there's something super problematic.
Exactly. And I think we tend to live in that survival mode where we could just be living abundantly and more healthy and feeling so much better if we just took these tools and one by one took a next step in taking the Dutch test or whatever your next step is, find out and listen to what your intuition's saying when you're listening to these webinars and say, okay, what would be a next step? How am I feeling? Maybe take some time to become aware of, day to day. Am I extra fatigued? Is that a pattern? Is that more often how I'm feeling than more often not? And if it is, find a practitioner if you don't have one. Longevity is a great place. I always say, got some great practitioners to see what's going on and how we can take you from that just survival mode to really, really feeling a lot better. So thanks for bringing attention to that. Um, so as we're kind of embarking on holistic health and hormones, I think again we make assumptions that we'll just go get some hormones, some hormone replacement, or we can do XYZ, and this is how we've been kind of programmed and wired. But let's talk about lifestyle for a minute. Lifestyle choices, getting back to the basics, are a huge component of holistic health, but hormones specifically. Talk to us about that.
So there are so many things that we can do in our own homes um, to take care of ourselves better. I mean, we start with we need to stay hydrated. If we're not hydrated, we're not going to detox well. I mean, there's lots of pieces to detox, but if you're dehydrated, you're not going to detox well to start with. You need to get really good quality sleep. You need to get a good night's rest. You need to support adrenal function, which can be, super easy with some adaptogenic herbs. You need to get in, at a bare minimum, a really good multi or a B complex. We need a lot of those nutritional pieces to detox well, to have the endurance to get through a day, to not crash and burn. We need to eliminate sugars from our diet, processed foods. So there's lots and lots of little things that we can do and tweak, and we can do it baby steps. I mean, if you try to do everything all at once, you're probably going to throw your hands up and be like, I can't do this, it's too much. Trying to eat a well-balanced diet, for women, especially getting in a lot of protein. Most of us are protein deficient and we need some good fatty acids. Our omegas are super important. So eating a clean, balanced, clean and balanced throughout the day. Avoiding alcohol is a big one. It's going to be a sleep disruptor. It's going to impact our sugars. We're going to have those highs and lows that we love that glass of wine in the evening to, we think, de-stress, but it kind of continually can put you on the other end of some other issues. Just looking at what we're taking in, even on our skin, looking at some good, clean skincare, laundry detergents, what we're using in our home to clean with. We want to make sure we're keeping, all those endocrine disrupting chemicals out of our daily life, parabens as much as we can. We want to make sure that we're not putting those things on our skin, breathing them in. They really disrupt from GI, to our hormones, our adrenal function, our GI function. So trying to live as cleanly as we can, trying to eliminate stress, which It was a hard one, but taking, a few minutes to either, do an Epsom salt bath or meditate or, listen to some guided imagery, all those things, going outside in the evening and grounding and watch the sunset. There's lots of little things that we can do that don't really cost us. People talk about the expense of doing something, but there's so many things that we can do to help ourselves to live better, live healthier, that aren't really going to cost us a lot of money. So
Right.
there's lots of
Right.
things that we can try.
Yeah, those are great. I'm so glad you touched on every aspect. There's a life wheel that I attached a few weeks ago to one of our webinars, and I used in coaching that kind of looks at those areas. What are you eating? How are you living? How is your stress? Because you can be eating clean and exercising and have a stressful marriage or be in a stressful workplace, and your toxic load's still going to be rising because, and your
Right.
hormones then are out of balance in as a result of that because you're not able to manage that stress. And I think I'll include some grounding exercises and a couple things when I send this link out for our listeners because I think it's important to have those tools. I also appreciate that you said uh, baby steps because I think oftentimes in what we do every day we see someone come in from the practitioner or they see you and they're looking at you like I'm so overwhelmed, I don't know, I can't do this. It's just like a 180 for someone.
Yeah.
And as a coordinator, I always say, and as a coach, my job is to help you leave comfortable and confident. So we'll sit here as long as we need to help you find some steps that are manageable for you to then take it and be able to do it little by little. Every step is a step. It counts. If you get up and you go, my goal is water, 64 ounces of water every day this week, and that's the one thing you do, that counts,
And that
right?
is such a huge change for people that
Right.
they don't realize just getting in that water, their probably their brain fog can be affected. Their GI function can be affected because they're not, going to be constipated because they're going to have more fluid in their body. Their skin is going to be better. Their joint pain can start to get better with more hydration. So even something that simple can make a huge impact. Um, it can be life changing. Small things can be life changing, even when people think that, oh, that's so small, it's not going to make any difference for me, but it can.
Absolutely. And so we want you to just hear that. And as you're listening, be encouraged that if you're one step after this, listening to this is drink more water, then it's a game changer. And then you just add on, it's called habit stacking. You just add on another habit each time you conquer the first one. And that's more productive and successful in wellness than tackling everything in one foul swoop because that sometimes can overwhelm the body even. So it's just and I will say this, and Maria, you know this, we talk a lot about bio individuality at Beauty for Broken. Like there's not a one size fits all. We're going to talk a little bit about that in hormone replacement versus, the way that we kind of look at it at longevity, but it's not a one size fits all. Every single woman has a different body, has a different trauma they're holding on to, has different needs nutritionally or deficiencies. And we have to look at each person individually when we're looking at what do we do to get to the root of this and balance and align things as they should be. So can you talk
Absolutely.
about that if you don't mind? Just hormone replacement, how that fits into wellness scenario and versus naturally.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, we're going to start incorporating the Dutch more and more. And that itself just lends to being so individual for everybody. Um, because, I could have the same test and there could be, they could look really similar, but there could be one piece that could be slightly different. And changing that one piece can change the whole paradigm. And it could be, you know, one tweak for somebody, whether it's part of the detoxification process with their hormones. Do they have too many or too little because they're detoxing too slow or too fast? Are they not supporting the adrenals versus detoxification? So every piece is different. I can use some of the same supplements with people, but there's going to be some that are completely different from person to person. And you have to look at what is going on with them, even in their personal life, in their stressors. How do we look at that? Somebody can say they're fatigued, but are they fatigued and actually really tired, or do they feel burnt out but they can't relax and they can't sit down? So that would be like tired and wired. um, so you have to support them in different ways. Somebody who might have a really stressful job or a stressful marriage, we're going to treat differently and suggest some other lifestyle changes than somebody else who might, say they're on top of the world, but they're still battling some of the same problems. It depends on somebody's age. It depends on somebody's, place in life. What can they handle doing? And you have to tweak that to every single person. I can have somebody walk in and tell me, I can do and take everything you want me to take, and they are 100% out of the gate. And then I have somebody else that is like, my life is so crazy, or my finances are tight. What can you do for me that is going to help me? But these are my parameters. So there's lots of pieces that can make protocols and approaches different for each person. And you always have to take that into account. You never want somebody walking out going, oh, because of this, I can't achieve X. I'm not going to feel any better because I can't do it all. And it's never an all or nothing. You
Right.
look at everybody where they are in life. Whether it's suggesting that they go home and hydrate and they take a walk every night,
Right.
or you give them a list of supplements and tests to go do. Everybody is different in those different things. Going for a walk every night might be the game changer for one person.
That's
So
right.
you
Let's get moving. Yeah.
yeah, you've got to meet everybody where they are and look at them individually. You can't treat everybody the same because they're not going to have the same outcomes, even if you give them the same protocol.
Absolutely. And yeah, there are even certain herbals that and our testing aligns itself. It allows the practitioners, it allows you guys to align the nutrition that balances with their results and what you're seeing on your scan versus, just picking one and giving that supplement to the same person all day long.
Exactly. That goes, for hormones too. We can see somebody who is, younger cycling woman, and maybe her estrogens are high, and you may go give them DIM. Um, but if somebody is menopausal and they're not detoxing well, so they're not efficiently getting rid of those estrogens, but their estrogen, because of age, is low to start with, I don't want to give them DIM, because then I'm going to pull more out that they don't have a big pool. So I don't want to give them something that's going to pull more of it out. I want to support the detox pathway, but I don't want to, pull every little bit of away from them. So it works differently with where each person is and what herbals we use, what supplements we use.
Yeah.
Everybody's completely
Yeah.
different.
And I think that's so wise to be able to have someone listen to this and discern, okay, well, where am I in this mix? Do I need, and there are some natural ways to do hormone replacement outside of herbals and things like that, some more natural ways than going the synthetic route. And,
Mhm.
but as far as holistic health care and what we do at longevity, there's just a lot of adapting to what where the person is, like you said, individually, and finding out, well, what is their specific need. I know my daughter, she was having she's 14, and she was in puberty and having some breakouts on her skin, and of course we looked at diet first, but again, it's this picture of, let's look at all the facets. What is she eating? How can we navigate that? Is she staying hydrated? But then
Right.
when she tested, she was high estrogen, and so we
Mhm.
put her on DIM for a few weeks or maybe a couple months, and her skin cleared up. Her moods were way better. I mean, just a
Absolutely.
game changer. But that looks different for every single 14-year-old that probably comes in, because they're not all at the same place. So
Right.
very, very good wisdom there about just how it looks different for everyone, how we're all bio-individual, and then talk about hormone replacement for a minute conventionally and what that looks like opposed to what we're doing at
So,
longevity.
we'll look at, I'll be looking at dust tests, but I'll also be doing the bioenergetic testing. Sometimes we can support somebody homeopathically if things are just starting to get a little bit out of balance. So that's always a really great first step. It's not invasive, it's so simple, no prescriptions needed, right? We can use lots of different herbal blends to help balance somebody where they're at. And then, there are always using whether it be topical progesterones or estrogens, which can be super helpful. And those are things that we can definitely do. And then there are people who, we can send to different functional medical doctors to obtain prescriptions if that's what they want to do topical estrogens, progesterones, testosterone, whether they do it in, a patch or a cream. Some people do the troches under the tongue. Some people go for using pellets for their hormone replacements. And that's something that I think that my only caution there is that people kind of walk into that, maybe doing either the patches or creams first to figure out what is their best dosage for them. Because
Yeah.
once you insert the pellets, you're stuck with that hormone level, that hormone dose for like 3 months. So if it's not the right dose for you, you might not feel good for a few months. So if you play with the dosage with some bioidentical or body identical hormones first in those different forms, you can kind of walk down that path and find a place that's comfortable for you if the other herbal supports or aren't as helpful for you. Some people only need a little bit of support, and some people need more to get them up to more effective levels for them. And that again goes to look at, conventionally they've got this window of between X and Z is normal. Well, X and Z is normal for what they say your age is, but maybe staying between X and Z does not make you feel good. So you need to have a level that's outside of your age range.
Oh,
So
wow.
you need to find, somebody who can look at those pieces and really understand that just because my blood test comes back on whatever it is, says I'm in normal range, it may not be the good range for you.
Well, and again, normal is relative, right? We really have to be careful with that word when we're talking about bioindividuality and each person being unique and the different toxic load that we're in. And I'll say just a quick bit here about phytoestrogens in the plastics that we're using and things like that. A lot of times as we age, go into perimenopausal, menopausal, our liver is so backed up and bottlenecked, and those pathways can't even move or process the
Right.
hormone estrogen and then the extra estrogens that we're getting from
Mhm.
these other sources that don't show up in our blood. So
Absolutely. That's why detox is such a huge thing. And I don't mean when somebody says, I'm gonna go do a detox or I'm gonna do a juice fast to detox. It's more about biochemically, how is our body able to make the different processes? Are we methylating? What are sometimes our genetics? Where do they come into play? Do we have some different SNPs that slow down our detox or speed up our detox? And either one, you want to kind of be, there's a fine line, where you want to be so that everything's efficient. You don't want to detox too fast and you don't want to detox too slow. So there's things, the simplest one to help support yourself in detox is taking a good, B complex helps a lot. So looking at those pieces, we are living in, toxic soup for the most part. We really need to look at what we're taking in, what we're putting on our skin, and, how that's affecting every system in our body. We're not just talking about detoxing hormones, because that's what we're talking about, but it's, everything that comes into our body. How are we getting rid of it efficiently? Because if we are backed up, then, we're going to start recycling things.
that's right.
And,
That's right. And then that's when that bucket fills. I've been talking about the toxic bucket, and
mhm,
each week, we start with that digestion and how our microbiome needs to be balanced, because that's we've got to be able to detox through digestion
right.
and we were laughing about this yesterday, but we got to poop, people. We got to be pooping. This is, normal to, you've got to be able to get rid of the toxins in your body. And that's one of the processes that is so important. But, just starting at that ground level, even when we're talking about hormones, we've got to talk about digestion. Then we got to talk about toxic load with old viruses or co-infections,
Mhm.
mold toxins, and we're covering all of that in the series. But it's, when we look at hormones, what I'm hearing you say too is that we've got to look at all the things.
We
It's not
do. I
just
mean,
compartmentalized hormones.
no, when we look at hormones, when I have somebody come in, I'm really looking at like what what are we taking in? How are we processing it? How are we getting it out? All those things are going to impact our hormones. So if we have a toxic burden, whether it's, something in, a bacteria related, Lyme related issue, mycotoxins and molds, glyphosate, any old viruses, they all have a huge impact on the body. And they themselves, that toxic burden, can have an impact on our adrenals, can have an impact on our ovaries. So we need to get rid of those toxins so then we can start healing. And I always talk to patients about, we talked about pooping. So when somebody tells me that they're not going, or, once a day, or I've had people tell me once every 3 to 4 days, and I'm like, well, our first goal is you have to be going. We have to get all this out of your body, literally and figuratively, um, so that you can feel better. Otherwise, everything backs up.
Yeah. Yeah. Detox. And we've talked historically here in the last few weeks about, you talked about methylation and the MTHFR gene and how that can be a
Mhm.
genetic predisposition to not being able to detox all
Yes.
those things properly. So even, we were saying, even if that's your next step, to find out, do you have that gene? And that gives us a whole different picture of how you're methylating, how you're detoxing. So it's just simple little steps that make a difference.
Right. And there is a piece on the Dutch test that looks at your methylation. So even in there, we're looking at it for hormones and which pathway are your hormones going down? Are they going down the red, green, or blue pathway? Are they, detoxing really well? Or are they detoxing down the pathway that's more carcinogenic? And that's part of that methylation process. What do we need to fix? Where can we do that? And if our methylation looks slow on the Dutch test for hormones, because that's what we're testing, it's probably, it's going to be slow everywhere. So it's a good indicator on how you're detoxing on as a whole.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's great. And again, when we're looking at the whole body, that makes sense, right? That even if our symptoms are occurring in one area, that taking a step back and looking at those basic foundational things, the lifestyle pieces that we talked about, and
Mm-hmm.
then doing all of that, find out, then we can address hormonal, balance
Right,
once we get those other
exactly.
pieces. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So good. I know, I feel like we could talk about this for another 2 hours, right?
Oh,
We're
there's so
just
much.
kind of giving little snippets, but I will say, if there's any practical takeaways that you might share with our listeners about, if they're listening to this and saying, okay, well, what do I do next? What would you say?
What would you do next? So if you're feeling great and you're, in your 30s, I would go do a Dutch test and get your baseline. Where are you now? So we can start perimenopause in our 30s, and it can last for 10 years. So if you have that baseline, if you're young and cycling and you feel like, your cycle is normal and everything's great, get a baseline. If that's not you and you're starting to have symptoms, get a Dutch test. Let's look at where you are. Let's look at, how you're detoxing. What are your cortisol levels like? What is your melatonin like? So on and so forth. And then we can treat you where you're at in the process. And then, everybody, like we talked about, all the lifestyle pieces, educate yourself, do relaxation techniques, hydration again, exercise, work on your GI health, limit your alcohols. Lifestyle is a huge, huge piece to this puzzle that everybody can accomplish and tackle, right? If you're new to all the chemicals and the toxins and the endocrine disruptors, take a look at some movies. There's, Dark Waters about Teflon and our forever chemicals. You can look at, there's another movie on, I believe it's out on HBO right now, that's called, oh, what is it? It is Not So Pretty. And that's all about skincare and makeup and all the chemicals and things that are in there that are endocrine disruptors and how they impact our health. So those are two good things to look at. You
I
can
love the
download,
resources.
yeah, you can download some apps on your phone to scan when you're in Publix and Kroger or Target and you're picking something up. Scan that code on it. If you look at the Healthy Living is one, Think Dirty is one, Skin Deep is a website that is great. I believe another one is Detox Me, and then Cosmetics is another app. And those are all, super simple. You scan, you pick up that face lotion and, scan the code on it, and it will basically tell you in simple terms, is this good, bad, or somewhere in the middle? Like, what are you putting on your skin? What are you absorbing? So those are like, they're really simple steps without even walking into a practitioner, or finding a functional medical doctor, that you can do to change those small pieces. So the more you eliminate those little things, the better off you are in the long run.
So good. Oh my goodness. I love those resources. I use a couple of those apps and they even will tell you the grade, but then they'll also sometimes suggest better products for you.
Right.
And
Better
so
one.
those are
Yes.
great. And the two documentaries, I'll link those in our
Okay.
episode notes for this Sunday when this releases, and I'll add all that. Thank you so much for
You
those
are
very practical steps. If you're interested in the Dutch test, Maria or I can, either one of us can order that for you. If you would like to come to Longevity for just bioenergetic testing, I highly recommend you see Maria. She's fantastic. And then I get to see you too, because hopefully, well, if it's a day I'm there, but we would love to see you at Longevity just to get a baseline for where your overall health is, and how you can supplement, just on a general level. But so, Maria, we are so thankful for your wisdom today and your time. This has been so, so informative, and we are just very grateful for your time.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. It's been fun.
I know we have fun. That's one thing we can do, is have fun.
That is true.
Well, everybody have a great week. Please reach out to me if you have questions or want to connect with Maria, or connect with Longevity. And as always, if you need coaching, I'm available to just help you walk through these next steps. That's part of what I do. So we look forward to hearing from you. And as always, have a great week. We'll see you next week on our Summer Wellness series. Thanks, Maria.
Thank you.